Or two. Hopefully we make a good dent.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
All right, less than 2 weeks until Memorial Day weekend and the unofficial start to summer, of course. But the Northeast, well, it's going to be feeling more like late winter, early spring at times this week. Congratulations, by the way, to all the graduates at Syracuse University who graduated over the weekend. This coming week, for moving out of the dorms, moving back home, maybe starting new jobs, we do have a dry spell ahead of us until about the end of the week. But look at the numbers. Above average yesterday. We'll do it again today. And then we get that cold front coming through with highs only in the 50s tomorrow. Overnight lows dropping down into the 30s. We could see a frost or freeze out there. You can see Friday it's back up to 79 degrees, and then the next chance of rain doesn't hit us until the weekend, and therefore some slightly cooler temperatures. But still, we should be right around 70 degrees for this time of the year. Let's check out the rest of the Northeast. I know my niece is graduating from SUNY Plattsburgh this weekend, and there will be those showers around as well. You can see across the South and even into the Northeast, we are still above average. The 95 corridor, New York City, Philadelphia, we're going to be in the 80s again today. Boston, watch out. There's also red flag warnings in effect. We've got fire danger out there. Mid 80s from Raleigh and even some 90s down across portions of the Southeast into Florida. So there are the numbers for the 95 corridor. Inland will be a little bit cooler, but here comes the front moving down across Lake Ontario with that frontal passage, or FROPA for short. We do see those cooler numbers on the map for Wednesday. This is when you're grabbing those sweaters and jackets yet again, especially during the morning. We could have a frost and freeze out there, and already we do have a freeze watch in effect for those of you in the Watertown, Fort Drum area. Temperatures likely getting down into the upper 20s and low 30s across the heart of the Adirondacks. 5 to 15 degrees below average for many of us tomorrow, the Northeast into the Mid-Atlantic, and it doesn't stop there. We bring the blue all the way down into the Southeast, Virginia, into the Carolinas, even into Georgia with that cold front passage, that east wind, setting us up for a below average day on Thursday in Atlanta. Highs only in the 60s, low 70s for Asheville as well as Columbia, South Carolina. Quick check on Charleston, South Carolina. You like it hot and you'll love it today and tomorrow, but then the cooler weather comes in Thursday and bump back up to 82, but that's closer to average. Jordan?
With a cool down while they keep coming.
Check on your Tuesday morning front lines, and we begin in Atlanta. It's going to take a long time to clean up that mess right
We
there.
just have a landslide in Washington.
We could get a name on that, right? That's very possible. Time now for your dog walking forecast. We love to see your pictures. You can submit them on social. Good morning. It is Tuesday, May 16th. Here at America's Morning Headquarters, we are watching out for destructive weather again today. More damaging wind, possibly some hail as well. Those are the primary threats for southern Appalachia and adjacent areas. Heavy downpours also producing flash flooding, a pretty good bet for today as well. Keep in mind the South has already had ample rainfall over this past week. It's been pretty active out there. And as skies turn dark, joins us now to discuss safety and how to spot hazards in these types of conditions. Bruckner, we love having you on the show this morning. You are the expert to talk to. Everything ocean, right? So the countdown to Memorial Day weekend is on. More and more people heading out to the beach. Can you take us through the process of identifying the danger just by looking at the waves?
You know, it's a great question. Look,
let's talk about, here I am from the Midwest. I bring my family to the ocean once a year. I'm not familiar with waves and obviously the way that you read them. What do you want me to look for and say, you know what? My little 3-year-old does not need to be going in that water alone.
Yes,
or too deep.
Absolutely. And I think
Stay relaxed. All right. So when you look at all the things that happen to people at the water in the the waterland interface here, what's the number one mistake that you see get people into danger?
Really quick.
That underestimating your ability when you're looking at conditions that are far more than what you're prepared for.
Bruckner Chase from
thank you.
Austin's Head to the end of the week. Could we see something developing along the southeast coast? We'll check that out in a moment. But first of all, moderate rip current risk exists here from Georgia all the way down the east side of Florida, parts of the Florida Panhandle, and even up toward the Outer Banks of North Carolina. It's not high, but still it is a concern. Even moderate rip currents can get you into trouble, so just be aware of that. You do see, as we check ahead Thursday, some rain right along the coastline. This is an area of low pressure that is going to be developing, and both models have this happening. This is a look at the European model, a little more bullish there. You see that low developing just off of Wrightsville Beach. Some heavy rains surrounding that, some stronger winds, and depending on the strength of that low will determine just how strong the winds get and therefore the wave action. How high will that be? Here's a look at the American model. We see more rain involved in Georgia, and you can see a low that tries to form once again off the coast of the Carolinas here, maybe not until a little bit later than the European model, right by Friday afternoon. And of course, even after the rain is over, the wave wave action will still be with us even as we go into the weekend. So just keep that in mind. All right, here are your winds now. Wilmington, Wrightsville Beach, even up to Virginia Beach. We're going to see those winds increasing as we head towards late in the day on Thursday. Around Tybee Island, Georgia, Savannah, Charleston, winds of 30, 35 miles an hour. And you'll notice even into Friday, it's going to take a while for that wind to die down and therefore for the waves to die down. So boaters, beware. Those waves could hit about 10 to 15 feet as that wind interacts with the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. So that's something we'll be monitoring as we head toward the end of the week. And, you know, Jordan, it's that time of year. We got to pay attention to these lows in the Atlantic with hurricane season about to start.
100%. Speaking of that, the official...
Right? It's hard to pinpoint it right down to intersection level, but we just want to make you guys aware that we could see more of this. What's behind me here, all the storm reports compiled by the National Weather Service. We had some wind, we had some hail. Hail as big as golf balls. That was in Jackson County, Florida. Another reported that in southern Missouri. Lots of heavy rain and flood reports kind of dotting the map here from the Ohio Valley all the way down to the south. And as Jim just talked about, it's just a very messy pattern. It's very muggy. When you step out the door, you can feel that air and you can see the white showing up on our water vapor, even areas of green where we have a lot of moisture content across the Ohio River Valley, and we go beneath the clouds, and that's exactly where we find the showers and storms this morning. We've had a storm in Louisville, another complex coming in from the western side, not reaching severe criteria. However, lots of dangerous lightning with that. We see some wet weather back towards St. Louis, where you guys have been plagued by really hard weather over the past couple of days. We have some thunderstorm activity in eastern Kentucky, a few specks of green showing up along I-81 in western Virginia. But beware, this is an area that will really light up with storms as we get into the afternoon time frame. So hazard Kentucky, all hazards on the map, unfortunately. We've got wind, hail, even the possibility of tornadoes down into Tennessee and the western side of the Carolinas. So wind damage, I think, will be primary with the threat. We've got winds up and over 60 miles an hour, but we can't rule out tornadoes. We've got a Torcon 3 for this region. This is the enhanced outlook by the Storm Prediction Center. So we could see a tornado watch being issued later today, and certainly severe weather. I mean, I would expect it, especially with the wind and hail coming through. Right between the warm front and the cold front, that's our warm sector. That's where we have all the instability and energy feeding into these storms. And already we've got storms cranking out there this morning, but with the daytime heating, it only gets worse, especially closer to that area of low pressure moving across Kentucky. So as we put this in future mode, you see by lunchtime, the storms erupting around Radford, Roanoke, Virginia, back into Kentucky, the Ohio River Valley. All that energy and instability will fuel even more storms as we head towards this evening around Nashville. There's hazard getting it too by about 6 or 7 o'clock this evening. Knoxville, Chattanooga, Tennessee, down to Greenville, Spartanburg, Charlotte, and even North Georgia, the Atlanta metro. We could hear some rumbling thunder out there overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. So just beware, a place like Knoxville. Make sure you have a way to get the warnings. You can see by dinner time, this radar really lights up the screen here with, again, all hazards in play. Jordan?
Yeah, we've had some big storms.
Memorial Day weekend, it's coming up just less than 2 weeks from now, the unofficial start to summer. But for those of you in the Northeast, it's going to be feeling cooler than that, feeling more like late winter, early spring. I'm not talking snowfall, but it will be cooler than average eventually for a place like the Cuse. Congratulations to all the graduates over the weekend, had the ceremony, and the weather actually cooperated. I think the weather is actually going to be pretty nice up until this upcoming weekend. Now, the temperatures are still going to be above average. We should be around 69, 70 degrees. We drop it down to the 50s tomorrow, and there could be some frost and freeze out there. We already have some freeze warnings. I'll show you where in just a second. But Thursday, Friday, we see the dry weather continuing with the temperatures being bumped back up to near 80 degrees, and then our next chance of rain doesn't happen until the weekend with 71 for a high, and that's pretty close to average for this time of the year. Now, we are above average, especially for the megalopolis, the 95 corridor. Temperatures are going to be in the 80s later on today. We should be low 70s. Plenty of warmth and humidity to go around all across really the eastern half of the country. We'll eventually get up into the 80s and even some 90s showing up there in Florida, with Orlando getting up to 92 degrees. Raleigh, you're going to be in the mid 80s for today, coupled with the humidity makes it feel even worse, right? But here comes the front to the rescue. If you're not a fan of the heat, it will also lower the humidity. Here comes the fropa tonight into tomorrow, dropping those temperatures down into the 50s for Albany. We should be low 70s. But look at the pockets of blue showing up in the upstate of New York, northern New England. Those are highs only in the 40s. So it is going to be very cold. Overnight lows getting down into the 20s and 30s for some of you. Highs will be 5 to 15 degrees below average. And you can see by Thursday morning, we will be looking at those really cold temperatures. So look for your National Weather Service to issue those frost and freeze alerts. 5 to 10 degrees below average, even here across the south from Virginia. Virginia through the Carolinas down into North Georgia. East wind helping with that. 68 for a high in Atlanta come Thursday. We just hit 90 on Mother's Day. Remember that? Now we're in the 60s, even some cooler weather for the heart of South Carolina and Columbia. For Charleston, South Carolina, you get today, you get tomorrow with the hot weather. Temperatures in the upper 80s, but then Thursday we drop it down before warming back up to the 80s as we head towards Friday, Jordan.
Meanwhile, folks